big national controversies competing for headlines out of the White House concerning the Jeffrey Epstein files, but also the Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy. We'll see what is going on here with Illinois in Focus Daily as Governor J.B. Pritzker was asked about the Epstein files, and we'll do a little bit of a historical analysis of some comments that have been made about that in the past, but also about the Russia-Trump collusion narrative. So where do we start here? Which is the most, salient? Which headline do you think is the most important? The Epstein file release or the information that DNI Tulsi Gabbard found on the Russia-Trump collusion conspiracy theory that was promulgated throughout the media for the first couple of years of President Donald Trump's first term in office, 2017 to 2021. So which is it? I'd love to see if the live chat sounds off on this. Is it the Epstein files that are the most important, or is it the Russia-Trump collusion conspiracy theory that is being alleged by the White House? Again, you can comment and let me know there. So where do we start? I think we start with what Governor J.B. Pritzker said about the Epstein files just this week. He was asked about it at a unrelated news conference in Chicago, where the question was, do you think that voters are really concerned about the Epstein file release?
This, frankly, is just an excuse for them to yet do nothing to help people, and the problems that the president has with revealing and being transparent about the Epstein files. I do not know why. I think that he ran telling everybody he was going to make transparent what the truth was, and doesn't seem to want to do that now.
Do you think people care about that?
I think people are quite curious and suspicious, frankly, about why it is that the president now doesn't want to do what he promised he would do, and what seems, like an obvious thing that he ought to do, which is just reveal what the truth is about Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, there's obviously some intricacies in doing all of that, including the call for Ghislaine Maxwell, the associate of Epstein, who's serving, 20 years in prison for sex trafficking. And the big question that people have is, if she was sex trafficking, who was she sex trafficking to? Was it just Epstein, or were there others? The Department of Justice saying there is no client list for Epstein, but they have moved forward to interview Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. There's even efforts to try to have Ghislaine Maxwell testify in front of Congress. Plus, you had the request to the judge on the various documents that are part of a grand jury being released, and I believe that judge has denied that request. So clearly the story is ongoing and developing. But flashing back to 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker, here's the headline that you can find at the Center Square. Governor J.B. Pritzker doesn't know if cousin Thomas Pritzker knew Epstein after name included in sex trafficking allegations. Again, this is August 12th of 2019. Governor J.B. Pritzker being asked about that. Here is that moment that we captured from the Center Square back in 2019. How many years ago was that? 6 years ago? Holy cow.
Thomas Pritzker, who I believe, if I your family creates an older cousin of yours, he was implicated in the documents that came out over the weekend saying that he had solicited texts from Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking ring. As a member of the Pritzker family, would you call that he stepped down as CEO?
First of all, I was unaware if he knew Jeffrey Epstein at all, and as you know, I do not. At this moment, I just say that I think that justice needs to be pursued here. There, of course, were some terrible things that were alleged here that Jeffrey Epstein seems to have done. And so I hope that the justice system will pursue the allegations that were made to the fullest extent of the law and make sure that the victims get the justice that they deserve.
Again, this is from 2019, August, when Pritzker was asked that question at a totally unrelated news conference here in Springfield about his cousin Thomas being brought up in the context of Jeffrey Epstein. But then in January of 2024, we get this headline: Pritzker's cousin Thomas named by Epstein victim and released depositions. Now, Thomas Pritzker spokespeople say that they vehemently denied the allegations. They told that to the Daily Mail back in 2024. But you can go and find the depositions at the Center Square. If you just search, Thomas Pritzker, Epstein, you'll be able to find the archives, including the depositions of these individuals that were being asked questions by attorneys and having official documents filed into the court record. So you can read some of that and catch up on that particular case. So that's the Epstein files situation. Now, of course, you a lot of innuendo in all of this, right? Because we just don't have the documents in hand. And will we get those documents? Not too sure. But some saying that, a lot of powerful people may be implicated, including President Donald Trump, who had a relationship with Epstein for years, only to eventually kick him out of his club with some suspicious and questionable behavior Epstein was conducting himself with. So you've got that storyline as well. How is Trump going to be implicated if the documents come out? So official documentation people are still waiting for, but you've got President Donald Trump, flashing back here today, this week. He talked about the Department of National, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing some documentation showing that a former president has conspired to essentially derail the first Trump administration.
May I ask you about that, Mr. President? Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up that came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election.
So again, Trump highlighting what he called the witch hunt back then. And during his first couple of years in office, all this started kind of matriculating out that intelligence officials were essentially laundering certain types of intelligence documents through the intelligence community to taint the Trump administration and to have this question about being a Vladimir Putin stooge for Russia. All throughout. If you recall, that was pretty intense. A lot of cable news networks were insistent that this was a real thing and that they needed to have all these hearings about, and it really kind of gummed the works up. So Trump has been after this for 6, 7, 8, almost a decade now. I mean, 2016 is when he announced his bid for president. So Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard yesterday held a press availability at the White House, and here's some of what she had to say.
We are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out.
So Gabbard spelling out how they carried it out. They even had a chart of sorts that kind of shows a little bit of the timeline here. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt talking about that.
To engage in a peaceful transfer of power. In private, former President Obama went to great and nefarious lengths to try to sow discord among the public and sabotage his successor, President Trump. The new evidence released by the Director of National Intelligence, who is here with me today, confirms that the Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump in an effort to try to delegitimize his victory before he even took the oath of office. The truth is that President Trump never had anything to do with Russia, and the Russia collusion hoax was a massive fraud perpetuated on the American people from the very beginning.
So Leavitt highlighting the ongoing issues around the intelligence community during the Obama administration and even stretching into the first Trump administration. Now, back in 2018, I had been reading up on all of this and reading what the Republicans from the House and the Senate were developing and researching and investigating, and they had a lot of information about the Russia-Trump collusion conspiracy theory and how it was manufactured back then. And I remember asking U.S. Senator Dick Durbin about this back in 2018, and again, this is flashing back. Here's Durbin being asked explicitly by me about the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act abuses that were being alleged back then by Republicans.
Use the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Act. You're not familiar with this?
Well, tell me, I mean, the Republicans find a lot of abuses.
They laundered the dossier about Trump through the Department.
No, of course that didn't happen. What was turned over to the FISA court, and those federal judges are not chosen on a political basis, was turned over to the federal court, made a disclosure of the fact that the original Steele dossier was done for political purposes. They knew that going in. There was a full disclosure, and they still felt there was enough substance to go forward. It's a red herring.
But I have real concerns when you have FBI agents that are politically motivated, it appears, in this process. I've been willing to give Robert Mueller the discretion that he needs, but we're getting into a period of time that is way too long. What I've said is we need to wrap this up sooner rather than later.
Again, that's just that was Congressman Darren LaHood, who is still in Congress back in 2018, following Senator Dick Durbin back in 2018, talking about the Russia-Trump collusion accusations back then of manufactured information, and LaHood saying it's taking way too long. Again, that was 2018. It's 2026 now. It's 8 years later, and we're just now getting this information from the second non-consecutive Trump administration. So again, two major controversies competing for headlines: the release of the Epstein files, when is that going to happen? And this new revelation of the progeny of the Russia-Trump collusion narrative over the past nearly 10 years now. Pretty fascinating stuff, but obviously when Illinois officials are talking about it, we're gonna cover it. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with more Illinois in Focus Daily. A lot going on with the big, beautiful bill. Everything from increased border funding to increased funding for the Department of Defense and a federal tax credit program for school choice. Governor J.B. Pritzker breaking his silence on that earlier this week as to whether Illinois will opt into that program. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Last week, the Department of Education Secretary for the Trump administration, Linda McMahon, she was with the American Legislative Exchange Council talking about education, and she said that parents need to be able to have school choice.
Let's have parents be at the center of that, because parents are with their children. They know what is best for their child, and they should have the choice to put their children in schools where they can flourish. No child should be a prisoner of a failing school. And so to be able to, thank you. And so as we look at the new legislation, I mean, well, we've just allocated we're able to get past, another $60 million for school choice. So now we're up to $500 million. And that just makes such a big difference.
And so we've got this program that was part of the big beautiful bill to allow for $1,700 of private money to be donated to a school choice scholarship granting organization, and that money would then go to parents to be able to pay for a school of their choice for their kids, so they can get out of a failing public school, for instance. Illinois had something like this, the Invest in Kids program from 2018 to 2023. There was a 75% tax credit for individuals donating private dollars to scholarship granting organizations. They helped out 40,000 families, but then Democrats at the State House let the program expire at the end of 2023. So we haven't had Illinois Invest in Kids for a couple of years now. So here we are with this federal program. It's not 75% tax credit. It's 100% tax credit, but it's capped at only $1,700 per individual. Illinois has to opt into it. Governor J.B. Pritzker was asked earlier this week about this, and here are some of his thoughts.
Well, it's a great...
All right, actually, here you go. Let's go over here to the governor. We'll have Andrew Chesney here in a moment.
So we've got to look at, remember, Donald Trump is trying to take away funding from public schools, right? He has shut down funding to the states for public schools. And we've had to sue to try to get it back. So this idea that he's for education and that's why he pushed having this provision in the bill is just false narrative. So we're going to have to look at whether or not we can implement a program that will be good for all students and all families that have students in school, and not just a program that's about private schools, sometimes religious schools, and sometimes schools that would reject having an LGBTQ member as a teacher. Whether we should be supporting a program that just does that, when in fact the federal administration is taking away money from people who can't afford to go to a public school, who would like to go, private school, who would like to go to a public school that's a quality school, but they're having their funding taken away. That doesn't seem fair to me.
So he doesn't really answer the question about the Invest in Kids like federal program, right? He's going to have to be pinned down on that at some point. That federal program kicks in 2027, so there's still some time here, and it's obviously going to be an election issue heading into 2026 for members running for the Illinois State House, for instance, and even for the governor and whoever's challenging him on the Republican side. But here's what the program does. Andrew Chesney supports it, and he says that Illinois should opt into it.
Well, it's the greatest way to give opportunity to people that deserve it the most or that need it the most, and that would be our minority communities, those areas that have been underserved and have been victims of poorly functioning school systems that have not provided adequately the proper skill set necessary for many of these people to be in a successful situation when they graduate. And so educational opportunity opens many doors and gives families the flexibility where there is otherwise financial barriers that make that problematic. And so we, of course, are very supportive of this because we don't believe outcomes should be dictated by a child's zip code. And any reasonable person should recognize that many of these children are trapped into some awful school systems that they can just simply not get out of because their families don't have the financial means to provide a different educational choice. And therefore, if we're able to lower the cost of additional opportunity or additional educational opportunities like private schools, like charter schools, this would certainly should be welcomed by anybody that cares about a child and their well-being.
And whether or not Illinois is going to opt into this program. Still a big unanswered question. And it's something that Republicans and school choice advocates are pushing for. Some saying that Illinois already has that infrastructure set up. They've got scholarship granting organizations that were there for Illinois Invest in Kids. So kind of seems like it would be turnkey just to say, all right, we're ready for it. We've got several school granting organizations already in place that can accept these donations and give people that 100% federal tax credit. And then others saying that it should be expanded even to Illinois and to have the Illinois Invest in Kids program reinstated to stack on top of the federal program. So how that's going to work out, not sure. But back to Linda McMahon, the Secretary of the Department of Education for the Trump administration. She says that Trump is really focused on getting the dollars to help the kids in school.
I specifically didn't say we were shutting down the Department of Education. We're talking about this and trying to say, no, we're repurposing all the good parts and all the things, the necessary functions, and kind of shifting them to the different places once you get that all laid out, right?
And that's exactly the plan. However, I have a boss who says to me every time I see him, so how are we moving along with shutting down the Department of Education? But he means exactly what you have said and what I have said. He wants to, I mean, the teachers' unions, which you affectionately mentioned,
oh, so affectionately,
are insistent, that the president hates education, and he's getting rid of education. Well, it's the most far-fetched thing ever. He really just wants to make it the most excellent education system that can be in the world.
Well, absolutely. The panel before us was talking about kind of disrupting it in a way that kind of iron sharpens iron. This is not an attack on public schools. This is a way for public schools to get out of what they've been stuck in.
Something we'll be watching here closely in Illinois. Obviously, it's a huge issue with Illinois education, and some analysis indicating that there's a lot of work to be done in that space in Illinois in the public sector, but why not just give kids some school choice? It's a debate we'll be watching here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus Daily. Everyone knows Illinois has some of the worst unfunded pension liabilities in the country, if not the worst, but Chicago's right up there as well. With $36 billion of unfunded pension liability. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning. So the state has 5 pension funds. You got the state employees retirement system, the state universities retirement system, the state General Assembly retirement system, the judges retirement system.
Appreciate the setup of the question, but
there's one more. Teachers retirement system, the biggest one. And that's all outside of Chicago. Chicago has their own pension systems that they have to manage. And while the state's looking at $140 billion unfunded pension liability with funding ratios of like 45% or so, you've got Chicago with that $36 billion unfunded pension liability, and funding ratios aren't that hot either. So back to Chicago, you've got efforts by state legislators to enhance benefits for public safety retirees. Now, some background here. Back in 2011, people hired after that year were put into a Tier 2 retirement system that was meant to try to lower the amount of liability that taxpayers have to fund pensions for those who are retiring, because a lot of analysis was that Tier 1, those hired before 2011, very generous pensions. People retiring and getting 3% compounded cost of living increases with their pensions every year. And then you also had the health insurance that was subsidized, some people calling it a Cadillac plan. So you had that just compounding costs, hence why we have the unfunded liability. Others saying not enough money's being put into the pension system. That's why we have the unfunded liability. We've got the Edgar pension ramp that former Governor Jim Edgar had signed into law that essentially said the state's going to be giving more and more and more and more money, ramping up all of a sudden where it's going to get taking up a quarter of the state's budget, if not more, just to pay for pensions every year. And then after about 2040 or so. The goal is to try to get it up to 90% funded, and then they can lower how much they're giving into the pension system. So again, that's for the state of Illinois, but the state's pension laws, when they did Tier 2, that impacted all public sector employees. Then you had the battle over whether or not Tier 1 benefits could be reduced, and that went to the Illinois Supreme Court, and they upheld the state constitution's pension protection clause, people call it, and it's essentially a clause in the Constitution that says benefits cannot be diminished. So the Supreme Court upheld that and still allowed for the 2011 Tier 2 to happen. So now here we are in 2025, and a lot of people saying that Tier 2 is not sufficient enough to match Social Security requirements, which could mean penalties for the pension fund going to the federal government, which could cost taxpayers. So there's an effort to try to boost the Tier 2 pension benefits. Statewide, it hasn't happened yet, but in Chicago, some legislators did pass a measure that increases benefits for Tier 2 public safety employees. That bill is on the governor's desk. He has yet to enact it, but yet earlier this week he was asked about the bill and whether or not he's going to enact it.
Appreciate the setup of the question, but let's be clear. We're still evaluating the bill. Obviously, there are a lot to consider here. One thing to consider, of course, is the finances for the city of Chicago. How will they pay for it? Another thing to consider is these are our policemen. These are our first responders, and we want to make sure that they're well taken care of, as the firefighters have been previously. So all that's part of the consideration as I look at the bill.
So he's still looking at the bill, not sure if he's going to sign it yet. He's got some things to consider. Governor J.B. Pritzker, of course, the one that's going to be enacting that, but it's going to impact Chicago. And Mayor Brandon Johnson was asked about this earlier this week. He said the bill's incomplete.
There's no secret that the liability, particularly the debt liability that the city has and that we're facing, has a lot to do with our pension debt as well as, of course, police settlement. I've spoken to the legislature about my concerns about this particular bill, and I still have those concerns. Our finance team has evaluated the ramifications of such a law, and I am still very much concerned about the expectation and the demand of taxpayers to be able to pay these pensions, particularly without any progressive revenue attached to it. Here's what should or still could happen, is that in our effort to secure retirement for our public employees, which is critical and constitutional, absent progressive revenue, it's impossible to sustain that expectation. And so this, I guess the best way to put it, this is incomplete.
So do I hear you saying that the governor should veto this unless he identifies progressive revenue?
I'm saying that without progressive revenue, there's not a pathway that allows for us to be able to maintain these obligations.
So what's this progressive revenue? Not sure yet. Is it going to be changing the income tax? Is it going to be finding different types of taxes that can increase on the people of Chicago? Or are we talking about statewide taxes to go help Chicago, or gambling revenue from allowing video gaming machines in Chicago? Is that going to ever happen? What's it going to be? But if you go to Wire Points, they say that this measure that legislators passed is just going to make things worse. And say we have a big problem in Chicago, Wire Points writes. The city's public safety pension funds have an obligation to pay $68 billion in pension benefits to police and firemen over the next 30 years. To meet those future obligations, the funds need $26 billion in investments right now, but the funds have just $6 billion in assets today. Absent bailouts, the pension funds will never have enough money to meet their obligation, and yet, unbelievably, Illinois lawmakers have passed a new bill to make things worse. They've increased the obligations of those pension funds by sweetening the benefits of police and firefighters hired after 2010, so-called Tier 2 workers. If Governor J.B. Pritzker signs the bill, that $68 billion obligation will jump by several billion to something over $70 billion. So again, some criticism there on this measure, and Chicago saying they don't have the revenue to pay for it, and the governor saying he's evaluating whether or not Chicago has the revenue to pay for it. How is that going to impact the state's pension system? Apparently it won't if the governor signs it, but the governor did set aside $75 million in the state budget that started July 1st to pay for any possible underpayments of Tier 2 retirees who may not fit that Social Security standard. that issue is still floating around. Whether or not legislators are going to deal with it, not sure. But others are saying that the only way to deal with this pension issue is to amend the state constitution to allow for benefits to be diminished, because there's no other way around that other than increasing taxes, and people say that Illinoisans are taxed out. So we'll be watching here with Illinois in Focus Daily on what the governor does with that particular measure. But obviously you can wake up with us each and every weekday morning for more Illinois in Focus Daily to keep plugged into what's going on at the State House and beyond here in the land of Lincoln. Practical rifle training at Aurora Sportsman's Club. Pretty incredible to see people exercising their Second Amendment rights and going through literal exercises and obstacles to test their aim. And I was able to experience some of that and witness it and bringing it to you here with Illinois in Focus. When I went to the Aurora Sportsman's Club over the past weekend, they had a whole day of events. A little bit of rain. Actually, it was a lot of rain. But it cleared out, and by the afternoon, the practical rifle guys continued through the rain, but they were doing their exercises and doing some timed events to brush up and get things together for competitions down the road. And I talked with Kurt Kapazinski. He is a board member of the Aurora Sportsman's Club, but he's also one of the range officers who conducts the safety briefings before these types of events with club members. He goes through and helps time and get people in the right place for the various different courses. So they had a practical rifle series of sorts at Aurora Sportsman's Club, and you can go and check out their calendar. They've got all kinds of these types of events going on all the time. And don't forget, September 13th, they've got their zombie shoot where guests and non-members are invited to come and see what they've got going on at that 300 acre property with nearly 3,000 members. So they've got the long range, 600 range, down to a 25-yard range, to a ballistic indoor shoot house, to skeet shooting, and even archery, all kinds of stuff. But they've got these individual ranges, 50 to 75 foot, that these practical rifle groups, different teams, go and they train. So Kurt, he tells us a bit about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the importance and significance of the Aurora Sportsman's Club. Here is Kapazinski discussing that with me on Saturday.
Kurt Kapazinski, Kapusinski. I am the match director for Practical Rifle, which happens once a month, every third Saturday of the month. I'm also a board member here at the club, which is fairly recent. But like I said, we do these once a month all year round. And as you see today, we deal with all kinds of weather and fun stuff. So yeah, there's a series of 4 stages, sometimes 5, depending on weather, where we'll set these different stages up. They tend to focus on a variety of skills, things that you wouldn't normally do just sitting at a bench. It's all moving and shooting. We usually vary difficulty from stage to stage. Like I said, as you can see today, we had some where you got 4 different shooting positions. You got 10 targets downrange. You have to engage them in a certain order. There's penalties for missing. There's penalties for engaging things in the wrong order. So it really makes people focus on what they're doing along with the shooting skill. Well, one of the things that we try to do is when you're moving like this and you're running with a rifle, it gets your heart rate up. So it forces you to calm yourself down before you just start taking another shot. Because we've got a rule here where if you can't see your target, you shouldn't be pulling that trigger. And if your muzzle's bouncing all over the place because you're shaky or you're sweaty or whatever, it forces you to kind of slow yourself down and focus yourself before you take that next shot. We had one guy that ran it in 38. I just ran it in 45. But it all depends on, we allow for this match people to bring multiple rifles out. So I've actually got 2 rifles in my cart. One I use for the shorter stages with just a red dot on it. And for something like this, I bring something with a magnified optic on it. A little bit longer barrel, lessens the recoil, and it really lets you take smooth shots. This match, practical rifle in general, is usually the first stop for people before they start going to 2-gun or 3-gun or things like that, because this type of match makes you focus on all the different shooting skills. Up close, knowing your height over bore, all kinds of different elements come into it. And as you can see, you're dealing with weather. So it really makes you focus on the fundamentals and making sure, A, you're staying safe, and B, that you're going at your own pace. We get people out here the first time. We had, I think, 4 or 5 first-time shooters out here today. We got people like me that have been out here doing this for 10 years now. So, like I said, this is usually a good first stop for people if they want to try to get into something like this, because it really is go at your own pace. There's nothing like this anywhere. I've got a friend of mine that used to RO with me years ago. He moved down to Waco, Texas. He's been all over that state. He said there's nothing like this in the whole state of Texas. So, yeah, it's an amazing club.
That it's here in Illinois, where politics aside, I mean, we've got pretty strict gun control laws.
Yes. This club is really the only thing that keeps me in Illinois. Like I said, it's one of those things where, it's a hobby of mine. I spend a lot of time out here, and, knowing that really you can't find something like this elsewhere, I'd like to get away from the laws we have here, but like I said, this place keeps me.
Thanks to Kurt for sharing that with us. Interesting to hear that the Aurora Sportsman's Club is one thing that's keeping him in Illinois. We'll obviously see what's continuing to go on over there. And if you've got other places you think I should check out, email me, gbishop@ilnews.org, gbishop @ilnews.org, and I'll see if I can make that happen and fit it into my schedule. But again, we'll share some more with you on Friday from Vanilla Gorilla. Who is that? Well, you'll want to stay tuned for tomorrow, so we'll share that with you to wrap up the week. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the live show, and that's at 8 o'clock here on YouTube. But you can also get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus Daily. Have a great morning. We'll see you back here on Friday for more Illinois in Focus Daily.